How did you develop into leadership? Because it's a lot of people that are that like they want to transition into leadership. They want to go up the career ladder, but a lot of the time early on, you do well at school, down to you. You go to university again, it's down to you to study. If you've done team sports, you start to get maybe some early leadership experiences, and then you start work. And again, early on in your career, it's your personal performance. And suddenly when you get thrust into a leadership role, then mentally it takes people a bit of time to shift from I to we. Did you
Yeah.
experience that transition?
Yeah,
Or
no, absolutely, I did, and partly, um, you're absolutely right. Most people end up becoming, in quotes, leaders, or at least leading people, teams, as a function of their individual contributions and a function of what they've done as in their roles prior to becoming a leader. So then you become a leader, and you're given responsibilities on a team, but no one necessarily gives you the handbook, the blueprint to say, here you go, here's how you be a successful leader. So a lot of it's trial and error.
yeah,
And for me, I remember a mentor, and this is probably key, is are the mentors along the way that have helped me move into these roles. A mentor said to me that um, y- we have to move away from a culture of heroes. And what he meant by that was, prior to that, as individuals, I felt as though I was impacting the organization through my ability to sell work, deliver that work, and really just grow the business in that way. And what he said was, as you transition to a leader, your role is not your individual contribution, but your ability to help others achieve what you've been able to achieve. So you equip them, you remove obstacles, you coach them, you sponsor them, and so I've had to learn that, right? That at that pivot when I moved from an individual contributor to a leader, and then since being in formal leadership roles, I'm constantly aware of other role models around me that I see doing things really effectively. You have to be attuned to that, and
yes.
I worked with some amazing people to be able to emulate them in certain ways.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because so many people, I mean, they don't like to admit it
Mm.
within the organization, but they really struggle with that transition
Yeah,
piece. Um, and yeah, I think for those watching and listening, I think everyone goes through that.
yeah,
It's okay to feel like that. And a really interesting piece of advice is, treat your career like a business. You're the
mm,
CEO of your business,
yeah,
and don't wait for your company to provide the learning opportunities. Take ownership of your career and go get mentors, go learn, go listen to stuff, go watch stuff, and acquire the tools that you need to go through that journey.
yeah. No, you're. I remember another mentor saying exactly what you just said. You're the CEO of your own career, and it does mean it's incumbent upon you to seek out opportunities to build networks. I mean, that's another thing that
Yeah,
I've I've learned over the years, and I don't know if you're aware of Myers-Briggs.
yeah,
It's a profile testing, and I'm an ENTJ, but I'm a borderline extrovert,
right,
borderline. So I could easily slip into introvert. So there are some occasions I derive my energy from other people, and others I need downtime.
yeah,
But I've had to develop networking skills, and so as I've done that over the years, it starts from a place of curiosity. So if I'm curious about somebody, it makes it actually becomes very natural. So when
yeah,
we were talking and prior to this formal conversation,
yeah,
I was curious about your background, and you were sharing with me just your parents and the immigrant experience, and being, I think you said your family being is it your grandfather that owned the only Jewish
in
newspaper
Egypt.
in
Yeah,
Cairo, right?
yes,
That was
yeah,
really interesting, and I've since actually retold that to somebody else because I just found that really interesting. So I think if we start from a place of curiosity, networking doesn't become this alien, scary thing. It just becomes a way of learning and being interested.
Yeah, and so many great stories. So many we've got so many things that we share. On the face of it, might look at you and I, and people in their minds might think, oh, quite different. Different race,
Yeah.
age. Okay, I mean, but actually, our stories aren't too dissimilar.
Right.
If you get into it,
Right.
obviously they're personal to us, but I think it's really fascinating.
But it is about making those connections, right? It's also when you engage with somebody, um, it's human nature to look for areas of commonality, I think, right? So we're striving to make a connection, and when you make a connection that's real and substantive, you just feel really good about that. You feel like that's you've connected with somebody on a human level, not a superficial level, but a deeper level.
It's amazing. And also, I was a young guy asked me the other day, like, how do I mentored this young guy, and he said, how do I get more opportunities? And so it was, but either it's business or job opportunities. I can't think of a better way than building a really good network, a community of people. And to build a community, you need to spend time with people. You need to be
Mm.
kind, help people, do things for others. And if you look at your, career over a long period of time, I mean, we're going to be working for a long time, and focus on just building a good community of people. It's gonna, really benefit you in the long term. It's a really good
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, and I think it has to be grounded in authenticity. It has to be grounded in that you're not just doing it to get something out of it. You're doing it because you're authentic as an individual and you're seeking to build a relationship and you're curious. I tell you, I can spot a mile off somebody that's inauthentic, and it really rubs me up
Puts
the
you
wrong
off.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The other interesting thing is a lot of people again have said, oh, it's really difficult now because I'm not going into the office. I'm not meeting people on the water cooler. Um, but I think for me, and I would love to hear your thoughts on
Mm,
this, but I think now it's such an amazing opportunity to
mm,
network even more than you did before. I mean,
yeah.
LinkedIn, for example, is free to use. It's probably the modern day cocktail party. And everyone you're probably likely to work with now and in the future, work with as a client, they're all on there.
Mm,
And a lot of people most people love to chat.
mm,
They're all at home. They want to engage and have conversations. And I
mm,
think even if you're a real introvert, you probably have to dial up a little bit less courage or your extrovertness than you would
mm,
do if you were in a bar or in a networking
mm.
event in person.
Yeah, yeah. There are pros and cons, right? There are ways in which we've been able to connect with people in a virtual environment that we would never have been able to connect to before, just because of whether it be by travel or because we've been able to convene virtual forums more easily, involving people from all kinds of walks of life, and I think through those, for some of us, we've created relationships and we haven't even met them. I know with one of the projects I worked on for 18 months, there are individuals I had worked with over Teams and WebEx that I have never met in person, and I may never meet in person, and yet we got to know one another through that time. Um, but there is something also to be said about the human connection as well. It was interesting coming out of the pandemic, um, and meeting some people that I'd been working with on Zoom for the prior 12 months or so, and then meeting them in person. There was something very, very different about that experience. That there was a level of connection that, I think it can't be you can't surpass that with other forms of communication and connection. So I think we have to evolve and adapt, and I don't think it's an or, I think it's an and,
Yeah.
both the virtual world and the real world,
Yes.
being
Ha-
able to create connections.
That's very true. How is your leadership style, if at all, changed over the last 18 months?
Yeah.
You've got people virtual. some coming in. I mean, and interesting, you know,
Yeah.
how you might think the future might
I
look for that.
I think it's I think you have to be a lot more intentional about connecting with people as a leader. So you think about the more the pre-pandemic world when you're traveling and you're meeting people. There are countless opportunities for serendipitous interactions with people are that work in your organization, right? You're walking a hall and you connect with somebody randomly, form a relationship or progress an issue, or there's a follow-up that comes out of that conversation. That serendipitous set of interactions, that there are less of those in the virtual world. So
Yeah,
unless as a leader you're purposefully connecting with people um, on a one-on-one basis, it's really difficult to emulate that prior pre-pandemic serendipitous world. So I think that's
yeah,
certainly one. um, I think the other thing is, you as a leader can you also have to manage your own energy.
yeah,
So what I mean by that, it can be fatiguing going from 7 a.m. through to the evenings every day, um, on these kinds of calls. And what has happened, I think, our work days have become elongated during this virtual environment. And so unless you put up boundaries to that, it can quickly suck a lot of energy and time, and then cause you to be a less effective leader. So
yeah,
I think that's another piece to it, is being able to manage that. And I think I guess the third piece as a leader as well, it's recognizing that some of these Zoom calls for some people, just as my energy is being depleted, their energy could be, and they also may be more of an introvert. So how do you engage them in a broader group? And so using things like breakouts can be helpful, right?
yeah,
Using the chat feature to engage them in that in a conversation could be helpful for some of those people.
yes.
Asking them, are they comfortable having their camera on, or is it actually better for them, to turn their camera off? And so, as a leader, trying to meet people where they're at, I think is another technique that I've tried to employ as well.
Then that's really good because there's a lot of people over the pandemic, and there's a lot of stories of burnout. Still is. Um, People in different scenarios. You know, people working in their bedrooms and parents looking after their kids when the schools were
Right.
shut. What did you do over the pandemic to make people feel that they could be open with
Yeah.
what their scenario was?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it evolved for one. It evolved as we went along because we learned how best to manage through those times. We've done things like, for some of our businesses, said on Fridays, let's try and limit the number of internal meetings. Let's try and come off camera when there are meetings, and have some opportunity just to recharge, right? So that was one thing. We've done things like, and many organizers have done this, have done things like virtual happy hours at
Yeah,
the end of the day to connect, and create a more of a social environment. We've also, um, tried to be, I think, a little bit more focused around, who needs to be at that meeting, who doesn't. So we're not continually bombarding people with meeting requests. I
yeah,
think another technique has said, look, block time for
yeah,
there's real simple things when you're working across different time zones. Um, one can be less cognizant of things like
that's true.
lunch times, right? So
Yeah,
so block your lunch time, which is what I do, and I'll open it up when I need to, but I try to block it just so I can have a meal
yeah,
during the day,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and
It's so
so
true.
there are just things like that where comes back to, the things that we've talked about, being authentic, seeking to understand where somebody else is in their situation, and being empathetic to it. That's I guess another word that we haven't used, but it's about
Yes,
being empathetic
yeah,
leaders So anyway,
Yeah,
just a few
it's so
thoughts
true.
there.
No, it's true. I've heard a lot of people putting a fake commute in their diary at the
Yeah,
beginning of the day, because if you're working at home, a lot of people, you roll out of bed, you come into your
right.
office or wherever you work, and as you said, the days get elongated, and you can forget to move. It's
Yeah,
good to move in the morning. And then
yeah,
I personally, I put my exercise in my diary like it's the most important meeting of the day.
yeah,
Like if I had a meeting with you, I wouldn't move it.
yeah,
I'm not moving my gym session
yeah,
either. And
yeah,
I just feel so much better when I'm
yeah.
doing those things.
Yeah, I think that's important, and I've tried to do that as well, particularly around exercise. I mean, that's like I go through ups and downs. I'm sure, like many people, sometimes I'm going through a really good streak of getting my
Yeah.
runs in and workouts, and then others they go by a little bit by the wayside. But no, I'm 100% with you. We've got to draw boundaries. Employers, as they seek to create more inclusive environments, also have to help employees and colleagues set boundaries as well and create the environment where individuals can do that.
Yes. The one thing I'm going to be honest, the one thing I'm working on, which I haven't been able to do, is leave my phone outside my bedroom in the evening, because I get sucked in. I'm looking at my emails. I'm working internationally and get email. So that's for me. That's the thing I'm working on, which I think will have a good impact on better sleep for
You
me.
got you got to do it. I've been doing it for years. It's never in my
I
room.
believe.
Yeah, it's never put. I At the end of the day, I plug in my phone outside of my room, and I use the bed as a sanctuary to try to just
Do that.
switch off and decompress. I
Well,
think it's
I'm gonna.
so important.
I need to take your lead on that. I'm going to take your lead on that. Last thing before we go, I'm really
Yeah.
interested to get your thoughts on maybe a few trends that you think are going to materialize over the next couple of years, and how maybe like this whole work from home, hybrid working, how that might end up evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been much of a futurist when it comes to that, and I've got a colleague and a friend who we will have sometimes these conversations about the future and predictions, and I would say 9 times out of 10, it's usually the opposite of what he says. So it's a really good guide to actually figure out what's really going to happen is ask him. So so my view is. I look, I don't I think the workplace is going to evolve where yes, there'll be a hybrid um, type environment, but I think what the ways in which we work today in the knowledge worker environment is that we've realized that there is so much inefficiency when you commute from where you are right now. So I'm in my home, and if I were to commute into work in the Willis Tower in Chicago, I'd pack my bag, I'd walk to the train, I'd get onto the train, go to Chicago, get off the train, and then walk to the Willis Tower, open up my laptop, and do exactly what I could have done an hour prior.
Yeah.
So that just makes no sense. So as we think about just the role of the workplace, to me, it's going to evolve around why do we come into the workplace? It's to collaborate. It's to develop people and train them. It's to um, create meet or develop meetings with clients and interact with clients. It's so there are specific reasons why we've come into the workplace, and versus having the default be coming to the workplace. Now, I think it's critical that for teams to function, that there have to be interactions when teams come together.
Yeah.
But I don't think it will be the default where people are going to do what I just described around my commute into Chicago. I do think we have to be careful though, particularly for individuals starting out in their career.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
so my son is in college. In 3 years' time, he'll enter the workplace, and right now he's doing some work outside of college right now, and he's working with a lot of people he's never met before. So maybe he's going to adapt to that environment. But I do still think when you first join an organization and you want to meet other individuals and you want to be part of a culture, in-person interaction has to be part of the equation. It may not be the
Yes.
default, but it has to be part of that equation.
Yeah, completely agree. And I agree that, it's not going to be the same as it was. I think that's almost for certain. I mean, I'm in London in EC3 right now. It's a Thursday, and I mean, there's almost no one on the streets. The buildings are pretty much empty. Amazingly, everything's going on virtually still, right? I mean, the economy is roaring along, and
Right.
I know America, loads of new jobs being created. But if you walked the streets right now and you'd go to the Lloyd's building and you'd have a look at, you'd think, what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really, really interesting. A lot of businesses I speak to, they're landing on some hybrid kind of model, a few days a week, or you're in with your team, or you work from home, depending on the kind of job function that you do.
Yeah.
Um, but it's going to be really interesting to see how it
It
evolves.
is. I think people during this time have built a lot of resilience around just their own whatever situations they've been in, whether it be young kids or being on their own during this time. It's been hard for many people, and I think there's a sense of resilience that has been built.
Yeah,
I also think there's a sense of change and adaptability. I think you're seeing people willing to move into different jobs, for example. You're seeing that across certainly the United States. We call it the Great Resignation, where you've
yeah,
seen individuals that move from one company to another. I think there's almost this ability to change and adapt more easily because of what we've gone through, and a level of resilience to be able to weather through storms. So maybe that's some of the positives,
yeah,
but I think we've noticed a little bit of that.
yeah. No, because they say, once when you go through a shared experience, this has been I mean, the world has gone through this
Yeah.
experience together. But you always, I found from my team, we've got closer together.
Mm,
We've been going through and helping each other through
mm,
this, this tough moment. And I think we've got a lot closer and together through it. We've all been in our houses. You've seen people's fridges, their bedrooms, wherever
right.
people might choose to be. And it's been a really interesting experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that time always is the ability to look back and allow us to reflect. So we should have this conversation in 5 years' time and
Definitely.
see where we're at this point.
Definitely.